And so it is. Well, here I am, surrounded by the lilies of the field. I can smell the fragrance. And for me, it's not a hardship. I like it. But for others, it may be a problem. Well, I'm not going to fall asleep today, I can tell you, because I feel that nice, cool breeze. And as I was feeling the nice, cool breeze, I thought, just think of it as the beautiful energy of spirit, keeping me present, awake, and alert. And so today, I just opened this book, and as it says, it's the Beverly Hills Lectures by Ernest Holmes. It says, "The universe doesn't toil. The universe doesn't toil. And you and I race and chase all around the place, all the time. And sometimes you and I, we can't stop toiling one way or another, or if not toiling, broiling. The mind. The universe does not struggle, it does not strain, it does not toil. Behold, Jesus says, the lilies of the field. Not even Solomon in all his glory can compare to theirs. And yet they do not toil. They just are. And it's a sufficient thing for them just to be. Oh, we're never satisfied with just being whatever it is we're being. We want to be more. And the funny thing about that is, wanting to be more, is there is no more for us to be. This is it. We were created complete. We are completely open to being all that we can be. It's possible for us to be all that we can be. And we are completely provided for so that we can flourish and we can thrive. But the thing about it is, I can't take it for granted. I have to be open and receptive to it. Spirit never comes where spirit is not invited. Spirit never comes where spirit is not invited. Spirit's not pushy, won't impose. But if it's invited, absolutely there. Absolutely there. And we forget that. All of the saints throughout the ages, at some stage or another, in some way or another, talks about divine courtship and how we must court the presence. Now, it's not because the presence needs us to court the presence. No. What the saints discovered was that you really must court back spirit who's always courting you. There has to be a two-way flow of that energy. We must court back the presence that never stops courting us. And we were not brought up to think that way, mostly. And, you know, the poetry and the writings and so on all indicate this. The Hound of Heaven is a great poem for you all to read. And I'll let you discover it for yourself if you haven't discovered it. The Hound of Heaven. It's like you're being chased all the time by the Hound of Heaven. So Spirit's never going to let go of its attachment to you because it's impossible. To be in life and living, to be alive as anything, is to be part of the infinite presence itself. To be a very essential aspect of infinite intelligence. And all of it is important. And all of it has its part to play. So I don't know if ever you've thought clearly about being courted by the presence or you courting back the presence. Unfortunately, that word, or fortunately, I don't know, indicates, the romance thing. When you're courting the presence, it just means you're present. As Spirit is always present to you and to me, we can be always present to Spirit. Courting back the presence that never ceases to court me. I have carved your name upon my hand, the Old Testament says. Can a mother forget the child of her womb? The joy of a loved one entering a room? No, well, I'll not forget you, my chosen one. When you're studying your Bible, if ever you study your Bible, you should look for all those wonderful courting moments in all of the scriptures. My eye is tearing up. If you read Rumi or Julian of Norwich or the great Saint Teresa of Avila or Mechthild of Magdalena, any of these, not all of it, but an awful lot of their sharing is in the form of love songs, love poems. When did you last feel like that in prayer? So, when you do your meditation and you're ready to go into meditation, you can say to yourself, oh, I'm going courting now. Spirit and I have a date. And it's very difficult to think like that when it comes to something that's as intangible as spirit, as far as trying to figure out what that looks like. But not insofar as a feeling is concerned. You can be truly overcome with a sense of presence. That's more real and more all-embracing than anything you might experience, humanly speaking. So if you really want to get deep into this thing called spiritual life, you have to understand that mostly it's experienced on the inside of life. You will get some little thrills out there as you see a glorious sunset, sunrise, the bright, shining stars in a newborn baby's eyes, and so on. There are many things that come our way all the time to remind us of how awesome life is, how glorious life is, how wondrous life is, to the point that you can't really describe it. And anything you describe, you diminish. Anything you try to define, you diminish, because it can't be defined. Words aren't adequate, are they? People ask you how you feel about this, that, and the other. And you just can't really adequately say, because you don't have words to describe it. You really don't. And you're not supposed to. You could say, well, I feel like awe, I feel like wonder, I feel like joy, I feel like whatever. And that doesn't even describe it. Because it's an all-pervasive sensation. It's a sensation that makes you want to jump and run and skip and dance for joy. Some of the great saints did that. People thought they were just a little bit crazy. When did you last jump for joy and get giddy with delight after a sudden insight? That could be anywhere. Or in meditation, when you go really deeply into it. I'm asking you the question because this is not uncommon. This is not unnatural. This is what happens when you're really connected to Source. And the problem for most people is that they can't imagine that, and they can't feel that it's for them because they're not there yet. I've heard people say that to me so many, I'm not there yet. And then you'll never be there yet as long as you keep saying, I'm not there yet. Now, Spirit comes in many different ways. Unexpected ways, mostly. But it has to be invited. It must be invited, because Spirit will not intrude. Dance with Spirit. And as the song says, and every day is another chance. You have to dance it like it was the final dance. And that kind of a dance can open up a whole new perspective on not only your life, but all life. And it makes really, it just so centers you and calms you and balances you out that really what would trouble you in the past doesn't bother you at all. You get a sense of that too when you're in good form over something. Something great good has happened. You've heard good news or something like that. And then the person you've been bitching about and so on, and they turn up, and then they don't bother you at all. They're not important anymore. That's not important anymore. But we are living on three-dimensional planet Earth, and you and I are going to be put to the test all of the time when it comes to people. And the reason why we're going to be put to the test all the time when it comes to people is because we put ourselves to the test all the time because we're a person. We drive ourselves crazy. We tell ourselves awful things. No one can berate you better than you can berate yourself. No one. And you only know how to berate somebody because you berate yourself all the time, in one way or another. It's part of the growing up process, or growing through process, breaking through process. But you stop and ask yourself, well, what has this been doing for me all my life? How has this been forwarding me? How has it been helping me? The way I think, the way I feel, the way I interact, the decisions I make. A decision is the most important thing. It can either forward you, keep you static, or put you backwards. Watch your decisions. Watch your decisions. It's a brilliant thing. You have the ability to make up your mind. Make it up on the intelligent side of life. And when it comes to other people, it's very clear at times to you and to me. It's very clear to me right here and right now. This lovely energy with the lovely people looking in and here. That really and truly, what an awful waste of time, getting into arguments, getting into fights, getting into fisticuffs. It never helped any situation. It doesn't help any situation. You meet fire with fire and you get more fire and greater burns. Oh yes, Dr. Moira, but you don't know my mother, you don't know my father, you don't know my spouse, you don't know my child, you don't know, whatever. No, I don't. But remember, I have my own as well. I know I have had it better than most when it comes to parents and so on and so forth. In fact, I remember being extremely shocked when I first came to the United States of America, country that I love. I was brought up, and you've heard me say this before, in a country where everybody loved their parents, good, bad, or indifferent. You loved your parents. You helped your parents. And when I came here, I got a different sense of it all. I actually got some sense of it in England already. I remember going to for a vacation to the vacation cottage in the Cotswolds belonging to one of my friends' families. And it wasn't a cottage. Much bigger than a cottage. But they called it the cottage. And when we were leaving, I remember my friend saying, oh, I better refill the refrigerator now because I don't want them to think we've eaten them out of house and home or whatever. And I'm thinking, you're joking. And she said, no, I'm not joking. I just don't want to leave anything amiss. And I'm thinking, when I go home to Ireland, we empty everything. The children can empty everything. That's why they're going home, to empty everything. In a good way. And the idea of refilling your mother's refrigerator, etc., would be an absolute insult and affront to your mother, where I come from. Rather, when I'm going home, she's packed a big bag with this, that, and the other, and all the rest of it, and so on and so forth, etc. It took me a long time to realize not everybody had parents like I had. I always thought everybody's parents were the same. In Ireland too, 200 years ago in Ireland, when I was growing up, you never left your parental home until you got married. Now, you could be 54 when you got married in Ireland if you're in the rural areas. I'm not saying that many of the children stay living with their parents, but you could if you wanted to. Whereas when I came to the States, I heard people saying, oh, well, they'll be 18 soon and that'll be them out of the house. And I'm thinking, no way will you ever hear that coming out of an Irish parent's mouth. And I'm not saying this is better than that. I'm just saying this is the difference. Because in many ways, young Americans grow up to be more independent in that way, more self-reliant. And they don't expect so much from others. But to the last day I went home, I would go home, and when I'd be going out, I always took the bus. Buses run every 5 minutes. Great service. Change would be on the sideboard. A clean handkerchief would be on the sideboard. I might need change for the buses. I might need change for something else if I have to make a phone call while I'm out, and so on and so forth. But everything was anticipated. My mother anticipated our needs. Got up in the morning, the shoes were polished. My shoes were always polished. the nuns would always say, and look at Moira's lovely polished shoes. I always was dreading them saying, do you polish your shoes yourself? They didn't, though. I didn't like it, though, in the sense that I looked at this wonderfully intelligent woman and I thought, oh my God, all she ever does is cook and clean. I said, I made up my mind then, this is not going to be my life. One meal was over, you're setting the table for the next. That meal is over, you're setting the table for the next. And you're doing all the bazillions of other things in between, and they make it look so easy. But even as a child, I knew, how could an intelligent person be happy in a very confined way of life and living? Not that they thought they were confined, it was the way it was. But I don't know. I often think my mom, if she was given half a chance, could have soared in business. But never any complaints and so on. And I would think, what a waste. I was as a child. Because I didn't know then what I know now. And everything was made clear to let us know that our work as children was to go to school, to do well at school, and to have sufficient playtime and so forth. We were not like many children who had to do so many chores, it wasn't funny. And as I say, it took me going and living in England and living in America to realize not every child had that kind of experience. And yet, I see the merit in both. We were very sheltered as children, you know. So I'm saying to you right now, you don't need anyone in your life to make your life right. You don't need anyone in your life to fill in for what's not there. The only one you need in your life is you. The only one you can rely on is you. And the only one you're going to be with eternally is you. So the message for today is, how are you getting on with yourself? What kind of a relationship do you have with yourself? Do you invest with the relationship you have with yourself? Do you enjoy the relationship you have with yourself? Can you stand on your own 2 feet and rely upon yourself? And it's not that you have to do that on your own, not at all. But it's great when you know you could, if you had to. And also great to know that you have present to you all of the time the most wise and glorious counselor, the kindest counselor you could possibly have. And it's there in the center core of your being, and it always has been, and it is your higher self. Imagine that. So next time we feel a little, weak, vulnerable, under the weather or whatever, as soon as you recognize your self-pity, as soon as you recognize your anxiety, as sure as you recognize you feel yourself lacking, wanting, and in need of something, catch yourself on and say, all that I need is within me. That which is within you is greater than that which is in the world, scriptures say. That which is within you, not out there or in them, that which is within you is greater than anything out there. Now the thing is, when you rely upon that, out there will open up and you'll have so much help coming your way from out there in the form of radiations of Spirit's own love and help and support and healing. But you can't take anybody's word for it, no, nor can you take it out of a book. You have to interact with your source, connect with your source, rely upon your source, and keep that way of communication open. Dr. Bitzer, my first religious science teacher, would pound the desk so often and say, I rely upon principle. That was his word for spirit, for source. I rely upon principle. How often do you tell yourself that you rely upon your source? And you need not worry. Because always, no matter what, you are going to end up knowing your source. No matter what. And it doesn't matter how much we think we've made mistakes. Your mistakes are not what is seen by Spirit. When Spirit looks at you, Spirit sees the glorious reflection of its own glorious self. Because Spirit is seeing you in your truth. It's the only way Spirit can see you, is in your truth. Because there can't be Spirit and something else in the divine realm. There's only God. God is all there is. There is only God. And God shows up by means of you and me and all of its creation at various levels of degrees of consciousness. And you can reach the highest degree of consciousness. Do you believe that? Yes. Truly. Yes. Put your hand on your heart and say, I believe it. I trust it. I'm open to experiencing it more. Now that's the truth for me. And so it is. And so indeed it is. And you're going to go out there now today, and you are going to enjoy every conscious moment. And I say conscious moment, because when you go unconscious, I don't know what you'll be doing with yourself. But you can enjoy every conscious moment and really have a grin on your face all the time. When you come back to center, come back to truth, come back to the realization that right where I am, my Creator is. And where my Creator is always well. And I lean into that presence in gratitude. And I trust it. I trust the creative process in my life. I trust it. Can you do that? Yes. Will we all do that today for the rest of the day? Well, that's a start. Will we all do that for the rest of the day? Yes! Like Dr. Bitzer, I rely upon principle. And it's like Dr. Ernest Holmes when he was going out on the stage to give a talk. Dr. Bitzer was with him, and he said, Bob, Dr. Bitts, I thought, oh my God, he's going to share something wonderful with me. And he says, yes, Ernest. He says, you know, it's all about relying on principle. And off he went. And Dr. Bitts thought he was going to hear some great unheard of thing before, you know. See, we think we have to rely on ourselves. We don't. We have to rely upon the principle of life within us. I trust my source. I trust my source. Say it. I trust my source. I trust my source. Yes, I trust my source. So remind yourself of that throughout your day. And pause and breathe consciously throughout your day. I'm breathing in life. I'm breathing out life. I'm breathing in a blessing. I'm breathing out a blessing. Right where I am, blessing is. Source is. And all is well. Especially when there's nothing to prove to you that that's the case. With human eyes, or human ears, or human heart. But the truth in you knows, and the truth in you recognizes. And it's a great, and it's a good, and it's a glorious thing. And here we are at the end of our time together. And so, I wonder what you'll all do with this now when you go out there into the world. And I wonder how long you'll remember it and be moved by it and directed by it. Because if it's going to be, it's up to me. That's what our motto is. If it's going to be, it's up to me and no one else. It's up to me.